Okay, so you know how sometimes you just feel like you're drowning in information, like there's so much out
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
and you want to cut through the noise, right?
totally.
You want the core, the essence of what really matters, so you can understand it deeply and quickly, and that's kind of what we're all about here on the deep dive.
Exactly. And today we're diving into the super interesting idea that like you can teach yourself anything,
Whoa,
right?
like really?
Yeah, it's kind of a mind-blowing concept when you think about it. And our guide for this journey is an article by Shiva Narayan Taxshila Page.
Okay,
It's from March 15th, 2025.
gotcha.
And the title really captures it. Personalized Learning Journey. Mastering Knowledge Without Traditional Teaching.
So essentially, we're talking about like ditching the classroom, the lectures.
In a way, yeah, it's about taking control of your own learning, becoming a self-directed learner.
I love that. So what's our mission for today's deep dive?
Well, we're going to unpack this whole idea of self-directed learning as it's presented in the article and figure out how you, the listener, can become a more effective learner.
Awesome.
Someone who's not afraid to explore new topics and really master them.
On their own terms.
Exactly. And to do that, we'll be exploring some key concepts like how knowledge actually gets from a book into your brain.
Okay.
This idea of developing brain pages, which are like these internal modules of understanding,
Interesting.
and the power of exploration, connecting ideas, even breaking down complex things into smaller bits.
So get ready, because by the end of this, you're going to see your learning potential in a whole new light.
Absolutely.
So this idea that you can teach yourself anything, that's kind of a radical concept, right?
It is. It really challenges the way we traditionally think about education.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, like, you need a teacher, you need a structured classroom
Right.
to actually learn something meaningful. But this article argues that's not necessarily true.
So it's like saying we all have this innate ability to learn.
Precisely, the article suggests that our brains are wired for learning. It's not something we need to be forced into.
Fascinating.
It's an intrinsic capability. And with the right mindset, the right approach,
Yeah.
anyone can become knowledgeable, even an expert in something that truly interests them.
So it's almost like unlocking a potential that's already there.
Exactly.
And that brings us to this contrast the article makes between passive learning and active learning.
Right. Think about it. Traditional education often involves just receiving information, sitting lectures, reading textbooks, maybe even memorizing facts.
Without really like deeply understanding it.
Exactly. And the article argues that this kind of passive learning, while it has its place, doesn't really lead to deep, lasting understanding.
Okay.
Personalized learning, on the other hand, flips that script.
How so?
It puts you in the driver's seat. You become an active participant, exploring, connecting ideas in a way that makes sense to you.
So it's less about absorbing information and more about like creating your own understanding.
Absolutely. You're not just a vessel being filled.
Right.
You're actively constructing your own knowledge.
Now, this is where these ideas of book-to-brain knowledge transfer and brain page development come in.
Yes.
Can you unpack those a bit?
Sure. Book-to-brain knowledge transfer is all about that direct engagement with the source material.
Okay.
It's about reading that book or that research paper yourself,
Gotcha.
not just relying on someone else's summary or interpretation.
So firsthand experience is key.
Exactly, because
Mhm.
that direct engagement is what leads to brain page development.
What are brain pages exactly?
Imagine your brain building a mental module, a fundamental unit of understanding around a specific concept.
Okay.
And you're constructing these modules, these brain pages, through this direct engagement with the source material.
It's like building your own internal library of knowledge.
Yes. Brick by brick.
Brick by brick. And these bricks, these brain pages, they're built on a foundation of your own unique perspective, your own understanding.
So it's more solid, more ingrained than just passively absorbing information. Absolutely. And the article takes a bit of a critical stance on traditional teaching, suggesting that sometimes those one-size-fits-all methods,
Right. The standardized tests, the lecture.
yeah, they can lead to rote memorization and this reliance on external guidance.
You're not really learning to think for yourself.
Exactly. And that's where personalized learning comes in, with its emphasis on critical thinking, problem solving, intrinsic motivation.
So instead of being spoon-fed information, you're encouraged to figure things out on your own.
Precisely. You're asking questions, exploring different perspectives, challenging assumptions.
And through that process, you develop a deeper, more nuanced understanding.
Exactly. And your motivation shifts too. It becomes less about external rewards like grades
Okay.
and more about that internal drive to understand, to explore what truly fascinates you.
And at the heart of this whole self-directed approach are these two powerful forces, exploration and synthesis.
Right. The article describes this very organic, curiosity-driven way of learning.
So instead of being confined to a strict curriculum, You're free to follow your interests wherever they lead.
Exactly. You might find yourself reading books, watching documentaries, talking to experts, experimenting hands-on.
Like a detective following clues.
Yes, gathering these raw pieces of knowledge from all these different sources.
But then what do you do with all that information?
That's where synthesis comes in.
Okay.
It's the process of taking those seemingly disparate pieces of information and finding the connections.
Weaving them together.
Exactly. Breaking down complex ideas into their essential parts
Okay.
and then reconstructing them into a framework, a structure that makes sense to you.
So it's like taking all those puzzle pieces and figuring out how they fit together to create a complete picture.
Precisely. And the article calls this the brain page spectrum, this mental map of how you organize information.
Interesting. So exploration is about gathering the raw materials, and synthesis is about turning those materials into a coherent structure, a brain page.
That's a great way to put it. And the article even ties this idea of brain page making to system learnography, this fascinating concept that suggests physically engaging with the material.
Wait, what, physically engaging?
Yes, using your body, your senses,
Okay.
in the learning process can actually help solidify those neural pathways, those brain page modules we talked about.
So it's not just about reading or listening, but like doing something with that information.
Exactly. Think about taking notes, drawing diagrams, even explaining a concept out loud to someone else.
I see.
All of these actions engage different parts of your brain
Okay.
and can help create stronger, more lasting memories.
It's like the more actively you engage with the information, the more deeply it embeds itself in your brain.
Precisely.
Okay, but what about those times when you encounter a topic that just seems overwhelmingly complex?
Ah, yes, that feeling of like hitting a wall.
Yeah, like where do I even begin?
The article has some great strategies for dealing with that.
Lay it on me.
It emphasizes the importance of decomposition.
Decomp.
Yeah, it's also called block learning.
Okay.
Essentially, it's about taking that big, daunting topic and breaking it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So instead of trying to swallow the whole thing at once, you take bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. You focus on mastering one component at a time, building your understanding gradually.
Okay.
And as you master each piece, you gain confidence and momentum to tackle the next.
Makes sense.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Love it.
The article also mentions this interesting concept in learnography called thalamic cyclizide rehearsal.
Whoa, okay, that sounds a little technical.
It is, but the idea behind it is pretty simple.
Okay.
Think of it as your brain's natural process of consolidating learning through repeated review and active recall.
So it's like practice makes perfect.
Yeah, you know, when you learn something new and then try to remember it later,
Uh-huh.
you're essentially strengthening those neural connections,
Yeah.
those brain page modules.
I get it.
And by repeatedly recalling that information, testing yourself on it, you're reinforcing those connections, making them stronger, more durable.
So it's not just about learning something once, but about revisiting it, engaging with it over time.
Exactly. It's that iterative cycle of learn, recall, reinforce that leads to deeper understanding and better retention.
So this whole approach of self-directed learning, it seems to have benefits beyond just acquiring knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It goes way beyond that. The article highlights how taking control of your own learning fosters a sense of autonomy and self-confidence.
Because you're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. You realize you have the power to learn anything you set your mind to.
That's empowering.
It is, and it cultivates what's known as a growth mindset, this belief that your abilities, your intelligence aren't fixed.
Like you're not stuck with what you're born with.
Exactly. With effort and dedication, you can always learn and grow.
I love that.
And challenges, they become less like obstacles and more like opportunities.
To learn and improve. The article also talks about how self-directed learning can reduce the anxiety that often comes with traditional assessments.
Yeah, all that pressure of tests and grades, it can really take the joy out of learning.
For sure.
But when you're learning at your own pace, driven by your own curiosity, that pressure diminishes.
It becomes more about the journey than the destination.
Exactly. Learning becomes a source of pleasure, a process of discovery.
So to sum it all up for our listeners, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into personalized learning?
The core principles, as the article lays them out, are embrace exploration.
Okay.
Be curious. Actively seek out information from diverse sources that spark your interest.
Follow those intellectual rabbit holes.
Exactly. Then practice synthesis, connect those pieces of information.
Make sense of it all.
Right, and structure your understanding in a way that works for you.
And don't be afraid to break down those big, complex topics into smaller chunks.
That's decomposition.
Decomposition, exactly.
And remember the importance of direct book-to-brain knowledge transfer.
Yeah. Getting your hands dirty with the source material.
Exactly. And finally, cultivate brain page development.
Yeah.
Actively engage with the material.
Take notes, draw diagrams, explain it to someone else.
All of that.
So it's really about tapping into your natural curiosity.
Yes.
Not being afraid to explore.
And actively working to connect the dots, build your own mental models.
So you're not just passively absorbing information, you're creating your own understanding.
Precisely. And the article's call to action is very simple. Pick up a book.
Yes.
Start exploring ideas.
Just dive in.
Engage with the source material and start building those brain page modules.
It's a powerful message.
The message is that your brain is an amazing learning machine.
It's capable of so much more than we often give it credit for.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the central idea from the article is clear.
You, our listener, have the inherent ability to learn anything you set your mind to.
It's all there within you.
It is, and the article leaves us with this thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Are you ready to become the architect of your own education?
Whoa, I love that.
Start, now stay curious, and transform the way you learn.
It's a challenge, an invitation to take control of your learning journey.
It is.
So think about it. What are those areas where you're hungry for knowledge?
What are those topics you've always wanted to explore?
What are those skills you've been meaning to develop?
And how can you start applying these principles, these tools, to unlock your full learning potential?
This deep dive is a reminder that the power to learn, to grow, to master new things, it's all within you.
It is. You have the most powerful learning tool at your disposal.
Your own incredible brain.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Until next time, stay curious.
And keep learning.